Hello, everybody. I'm so happy you're joining us tonight. I'm Tammy L. Grace, and welcome to my page where I have two wonderful author friends joining me tonight. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing so you know what's happening. My friend Mara Purl and I decided we wanted to take a virtual road trip this summer and talk about books. And we decided to join some of our favorite author friends and meet them where they live, so that we can discuss their latest books and some sweet deals for our readers. So tonight we are talking with Rebecca Forster, who is guaranteed fun. She's always full of laughs, and will have all of us in stitches before the evening is over, I'm sure. But we're going to talk a little bit about Rebecca's books. We're going to talk about Mara's books, and we're going to talk about my books. And we all have some special deals for our readers tonight to share with you, with the first book in our series at a special deal for you to go pick up. We also want to invite you, if you have comments or questions, just pop them in the comments under our video. And if I know us, we probably won't get to all of them while we're chatting, because we're pretty chatty when we start chatting. But I promise we'll come back when we're done with the live portion. And if you have any questions, we'll pop in and answer those for you on the Facebook comment. So all three of us are featuring a different series for the summer. And we're, like I said, we're offering you a special deal. So we'll explain that in just a few minutes. And we're also providing a link. We'll put that in the comments for you to join in our giveaway. Everybody is giving away a print copy. And so we're going to announce 3 winners, 1 for each book, on Friday, June 30th. And all you need to do is pop in and hit that link, and you can join in for a chance to win a book. And while you're there, you can elect to subscribe to one of our newsletters or all 3 of our newsletters. And we promise we won't be spamming you. We just send you updates about our work and our books. And you can always unsubscribe at any time. So with that, I encourage you to grab your favorite beverage. Mine is tea, very boring. And we'll kick things off. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the world that I created. And then we'll have time for each of the other authors to tell you about their series. So my series is called Sisters of the Heart. And it's a brand new series that I just am releasing this year. 6 books in all. They're women's fiction, and they're set in a fictional place in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, which, if you haven't been there, it's just beautiful. And I decided I wanted to write a book set on a lavender farm. And so the name of this town is Lavender Valley. And it's centered on a woman who is named Jewel, and she has never had children of her own, but she's fostered dozens and dozens of children over the years. And she became especially close to 5 young girls that she took in, that she raised through their teen years. And so she's developed an ongoing relationship with them through letters and phone calls throughout her whole life and their lives. So she kind of keeps track of them and keeps up with what's going on in their lives. And none of the girls that these 5 girls have ever met, so they all lived with her at different times, so they never overlapped. They range in age from 40 to 60. They're now all grown up, women of their own. And Jewel is facing the end of her life. And her last wish is for these 5 girls to come back to her farm, because she thinks they're going to need their Sisters of the Heart. So it's all centered on a lot of emotional journeys for these women and for Jewel. And in the first book, Greetings from Lavender Valley, you'll get a glimpse into each one of these girls through Jewel's eyes. I've inserted like little excerpts from her journals and letters that she's written over the years. So it kind of follows their life from when she met them to the present day. And it'll give you a little bit of an idea about the girls and their personality and what's happened in their life as they've grown. Then subsequent books and Greetings from Lavender Valley is also in print, but it's available for a free download for everyone. So if you're interested, which I hope you'll pop over and at least try the first book and see what you think of it. If you like women's fiction and that sounds up your alley, you can get a sneak peek for free. And then each of the subsequent books is also in print and in digital format, and each of them is in Amazon's Kindle Unlimited program. So if you're in that program, you subscribe through Amazon and you can read ebooks for free. So they're part of that program. And each subsequent book, that first book I told you is from Jules' perspective. Each of the other books is features one of the 5 girls. So they each get their own story and are the main character in subsequent books. And right now, books 1, 2, and 3 are out. Book 4 is coming in July on the 12th. And then book 5 and 6 will follow most likely in August and September, but I'm not quite sure on those dates. So don't hold me to it, but by October, they should all be out for you to enjoy. So early readers have told me how much they love these books. They're hopeful, but they're full of a lot of challenges that these women have faced over their lives. All different, but all different kinds of hardships and challenges that put them in a place where it makes sense for them to come back to Lavender Valley right now. And if you enjoy stories that are filled with friendship and family drama and lots of furry friends, there's an animal sanctuary on this lavender farm, which if you know me, you know I love dogs and books, so I can't resist dogs. So you'll find lots of dogs, and I think you'll enjoy the development of these sisters that don't know each other that soon become a family. So that's kind of a nutshell of what mine are about, and I hope you'll go and give it a try. And next, Mara is going to tell us a little bit about the world she's created in her series with the Milford Haven novels.
Thank you so much, Tammy. This is so fun. Thank you all for joining us. My little world is called Milford Haven. It's a small coastal town on what's called the Central Coast of California. So it's about halfway between San Francisco and Los Angeles. It's a real area. It's just my town that's fictional. And I mentioned the real towns. So there's kind of fun tourism that my readers have discovered. And I get emails like, is that the restaurant? Is that Sally's restaurant? And that kind of thing, which is fun. So my protagonist is a young woman named Miranda Jones, who is a painter. And she is a daughter of privilege. She comes from a wealthy family in Belvedere, which is a very exclusive neighborhood in Marin County, just north of San Francisco. And that's wonderful and not so wonderful because it's difficult for her to establish her own path, her own identity. This family has pretty specific expectations of what their daughters shall do. To compound this, the older daughter, Miranda's older sister, has followed right along in those footsteps. She's a financial advisor. She's making good money. She's kind of a no-nonsense gal. So Miranda finds herself in a family that doesn't understand her. And she has tried for years to translate and to fit in, but it has become more and more difficult. Also, she likes to paint landscape and wildlife, but she's living in the city. So it's a kind of a dissonance within her. One day, this all becomes too much, and she takes a drive south. She had done a sketch of an imaginary place, but as she's driving, to her amazement, she glimpses exactly what she had drawn. And so she pulls off the road and into this little town and realizes she needs to move. This, of course, causes a lot of disruption. Her parents think she's crazy, so does her sister, so does her representative. So this journey is what I'm writing about in this prequel to the series. It's this journey from head to heart, meaning it's a journey from logic, let's say, to intuition. And we need both. I'm not suggesting that we should ignore all the logical choices that we have to make in life. But I do think there's great information that comes in from the intuitive side. And we are sometimes taught that it's not particularly valuable, that it's sort of woo-woo, and that it won't get us anywhere, practically speaking. Well, Miranda kind of disproves this. So in this prequel, there's quite a bit of friction between the sisters. There's this sibling rivalry, there's this problem of carving out a career. And at some point, she'd love to make room in her life for a romantic relationship, but until she solves her own identity, that's pretty hard to do. So, as Tammy said about her series, I hope you'll put your toe in the water and try this book. So far, readers have really been enjoying it. And then it leads into an ongoing journey of the heart. So the first novel is called What the Heart Knows, and it's that first few months of Miranda in the new town. And then the second novel is Where the Heart Lives, as she expands and finds the next steps in her career. And then the latest book is called Why Hearts Keep Secrets, and it was one of my very favorite ones to write. For one thing, Miranda finally finds somebody very special. And that's all I'll say, no spoilers. So we will be posting links as we go about where you can find our books. And I hope that you'll come to Milford Haven. And so now I want to introduce our wonderful friend, Rebecca. It turns out that we are both friends of the beautiful, incredible Rebecca Forster. And Rebecca and I are both Angelinas, meaning we live in Los Angeles. And our paths crossed for quite a few years, and then we finally got to meet in person. And I'd love to have her share about her series.
Thank you so much. And Tammy, thank you. No pressure to be funny. I appreciate that. Yeah.
You are naturally funny.
I'm sitting here racking my brain for a joke and not one is coming up into my head. But I'm also listening to you guys talk, and we write in very different genres. I write thrillers. They count them as legal thrillers, you know, in the book genres. And they kind of are, but what they really are about human interaction and relationships. And I heard, you know, Tammy, you were saying that they're about friends, and they're about, you know, women, you know, in their growth, and they're about fur babies. And I've got all that. It's just I kill them, you know. No, just kidding. I don't kill everybody. But all my books do start out with a crime. And I think I'm so fascinated by crime because my husband is a Superior Court judge, and during, you know, our long marriage, he has been a federal prosecutor for organized crime and terrorism. So I lived with someone who was dealing with justice on a daily basis and still does. And I became fascinated by the system and by the fact that what it all boils down to is one small person against one giant system. So when I started this series, I'll give you a little backstory. It wasn't a series. I pitched this as one book, Hostile Witness, which is my freebie for today. So Hostile Witness can be downloaded at any of the online bookstores. And I went to Penguin Putnam and I said, here's this book. And they said, that's great, but we think it should be a series. And I'd never written a series before. So I had this idea of a female lawyer in Hermosa Beach, California. And Mara, like you, I have had people actually go to Hermosa and say, is this where Josie comes to, you know, have her beer night? It's like people will go, they just looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I adore that these characters feel so real, you know, and that the place and the time feels so real to a reader, because I spent a lot of time in Hermosa Beach, you know, making sure that I could get the flavor of it. But what I did was I took a character, Josie Bates, who is quite brilliant and quite flawed. And she had defended a woman who was accused of murdering her husband. And because Josie is so brilliant, she was able to get this woman off on a technicality. And she was in the limelight in Los Angeles law. And, one of the top defense attorneys, made tons of money. And the woman went scot-free and ended up killing her children. And this drove our heroine to incredible shame and trying to make up for the sin of using, her brilliance just because she could. So she's retreated to Hermosa Beach, to a lovely little house. She's a volleyball player. She's actually based on a real judge who paid her way through law school playing volleyball on a scholarship or through college. And she's in this small community, and she has done this penance. Her college roommate comes and begs her please to defend her daughter, who is accused of murdering a high-profile judge. Her daughter's 16 years old. She's multiracial. And Josie meets this young girl, and every bit of evidence looks like the girl is guilty. But of course, there are deep, dark secrets everywhere. And the deeper Josie goes, the more tangled it gets. And she finds out that really politics and money and personal relationships are really combustible. And it just blows this book up really big. But what happened during the course of the book, what the editor saw that I did not see, was that Josie, who also had been abandoned by her mother at 13, that weighed on her. The fact that she defended this woman who killed her children, that weighed on her, that there was a theme of mothers and strong women and how they lived their lives. And what I came to realize was, I think we all hear about, oh, I've written a book about a strong woman. Well, what I found out was strong women can be good for goodness, and they can be strong for evil. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you are strong and get what you want, it's a good or happy ending. So what happened was Josie and Hannah had this connection that blew into an 8-book series. And it's sort of a saga that was never meant to be, because they have a small community, Josie's lover, Hannah, the girl she meets, and Billy, the boy who is in the community of Hermosa Beach, that becomes important to all of them. And even though they don't each have their own book, each book feeds on the last one. So that what you have is this cobbled together family that continues on and continues to have challenges. And the question is always, is this justice just for me? Is this justice for someone else? Who do I protect? Who do I stand up for? And I love that all the different age groups, the teenager, the widowed lover, Josie herself, they all have to answer these questions. And sometimes these questions and answers are completely different for each of them because of their status. So I am very excited about this series. I always have been. I'm blessed. I've had 3 million people as readers so far. And each one of them has a different take on this family that has no blood relation at all, but they certainly have become real in readers' minds. And I think somebody saw that, and I'm very grateful they did early on. So that's it. Available, same thing, audio, print, digital. We're all here. I love it. Everybody's all over. Beach reads for all.
Yes, exactly. Perfect for the summer.
Yeah.
So just a quick reminder that there's a link you can use, and this will let you subscribe to 1, 2, or 3 of our newsletters, and also enter you into the contest so that you can win a free print book, which we'll be sending out after the 30th. So I had such a great time reading this book of yours, Rebecca, which I loved, and also Tammy reading Greetings from Lavender Valley, which I also loved. And I noticed that even though, well, Tammy and I both write women's fiction, but it is quite different from Rebecca's genre, and yet there were some common themes. And so you mentioned mothers. That was one of the big themes. So, in Tammy's book, here's a woman who is just a born mother, a nurturer, and yet never has the opportunity to have children of her own, but finds a way to have many children, and these 5 in particular. And then in Rebecca's book, there's a toxic mother who is the blood mother. And then there's Josie, who is maybe a surrogate kind of mother. These beautiful qualities of mothering come forth and almost supersede her genius as a lawyer, again, moving her from sort of head to heart, even in that first book in the series. And in my book, and I must admit, there is quite a bit of my wonderful mother in this character, and I had her permission. I mean, I discussed it with her, and she was sort of, proud of it. So the mother character in mine is named Veronica, and she goes by Very, and she's beautiful, accomplished. She's a supporter of the arts. She's on the board of the ballet in San Francisco, etc. So there's a part of her that totally understands her daughter being an artist. And yet there's a lot of pressure from both her husband and her other daughter that, like, wait a minute, Miranda has to pull her weight. You can't just help her. I didn't get any help after all, and she needs to be strong in the world. So Very turns into a diplomat and sort of a helicopter mother. And with the best of intentions, she insists that these 2 very different women, her 2 daughters, share a house. She helps financially so that Miranda can get into this expensive San Francisco house. But once they're in the house, and the mother is so excited about this, and it's in a lovely area, and the girls are going to be safe, and it's going to be wonderful. Well, the top floor has a view of both bridges and the bay, and it's super fabulous. And the successful daughter gets the top floor. Miranda gets the bottom floor, which has, sort of a window that she can kind of see some concrete. But the interesting thing is that this sort of awkward situation, she turns it into a skill that then kickstarts the rest of her career. She imagines being able to see through walls. And what would the view be if the walls were transparent? And she paints murals in this space and creates those views. So now everyone wants to go to that part of the house. When she does get out of there and move to Milford Haven, the first job she gets is to do a mural for the town. And this is an ongoing in each of the books, that she'll create some fantastic mural. Sometimes it's trompe-l'oeil, where you can't tell where the real window ends and the painted one begins. And it improves the insides of special houses and apartments. But then she also does outdoor murals for organizations that support wildlife, which is kind of her thing. Anyway, I love that, taking a challenge and turning it to her advantage. And that's been a fun thing to track, through the series. So, I just find it interesting that we're all writing about the lives of women with all the complexities of women's lives. I often ask people at my events, are you even on your own to-do list? And a lot of women say, nope, because first, you do the house, the spouse, the kids, everything else, and we put ourselves last. So, wrestling with that and dealing with the importance of friendships, as both of you have mentioned, and the creating wonderful partnerships with a lover, with a spouse, carrying that forward. All these issues are very rich in all 3 of these series. So Tammy, I'd love if you want to jump in and talk about the mother theme.
Yeah, in this book, Jewel is an awesome foster mother, which I think would be a super hard job. I have no experience being involved in the fostering on either end. But she has this ability to have so much patience for each of these girls that are all so different when they come to her, all the kids that come and stay with her. And she has an ability to kind of give them space. Most of them that came there have had a very traumatic event in their lives that bring them there. And so she gives them time to heal, and she finds different ways to kind of engage each of them. And through books, some of them, love to read. Some of them love to sew or create, to cook. One of them, she has a dog rescue program, and one of them won't hardly interact, but she sees when the girl is around the dogs that she opens up and she'll talk to the dogs and she'll play with the dogs. And so she kind of uses all of those things, around the farm to elicit a little bit of an excitement in their life and show them where they have a gift. She kind of just naturally looks for the gifts instead of looking for what's wrong with them, and teaches them that, they can be so much more than what's happening to them or what has happened to them. And so she's, I named her Jewel, and I thought of that name right off the bat. And then the more I used that name, I thought, oh, that is so perfect, because she is truly a jewel in their lives. And, she has a special way of staying involved with them and caring about them. And she's just a lovely person who's beloved in the community as well. But, she made her own little family from a bunch of misfits, basically. And that's what she does with the dogs. That's what, I think there's a line in there where she has a gift for taking everything broken and making it whole again. And that's really what the books are about.
It's so interesting. That's really another theme for all of us, is that, Rebecca, you mentioned cobbling together a family.
Yeah.
And, Tammy, in your series, you did that. And I think what happens for Miranda is that she reaches a sort of detente with her family of origin. But the real family she creates comes up in Milford Haven with the friend she meets who owns the restaurant, and the woman who's a little older, who's the head of the Environmental Planning Commission, and the lovely guy who works at, the hardware store, and just finding sisters and brothers and companions with whom she can express herself and become more herself. Did you want to go ahead?
I was just thinking maybe that, that does make all our work fairly rich, really, because, we're not 20 years old. We've all experienced so many things. And even if you have a birth family that you're close to, very close to, when you go out in the world, you have choices of people you trust and people you love. And oftentimes you don't have, a huge community. You have those 4 or 5 people that mean so much to you. And I love that your mothers chose mothering. And Mara, your mother kind of sent them out of the nest in a way, you're going to have to go make this nest and then see what happens to you from there. And that mother was really smart to do that. And your situation of having an artistic child and a not artistic child, believe me, I have, that's our family all over the place. So I am really drawn to what you're saying. We don't discount the artistic end of our family, but we admire so much the practical, people who have gone out and really made it in the world. And then in Tammy's book, to have this woman who so selflessly chooses, to gather these girls who become women, it's wonderful to think those mothers are out there. And then my character, because she was abandoned at 13, which of course works itself out throughout a really surprising turn of events with her mother who abandoned her. But mine did not have a mother figure. She had a father in the armed services. So for her to be confronted with something where she felt drawn to a young girl or this boy who is a latchkey kid, realizing she totally understands their situation and their challenges, what she has a hard time with is that she feels emotionally involved with them. Whereas I think your mothers were emotionally involved from the beginning and understood what it was to give and to guide. Whereas poor Josie, she's like, this just doesn't feel comfortable. And, I don't know what I'm doing. But the funny thing is she has found people who completely understand her and buy into her needs, and she learns to understand theirs. And I think it's funny how people come in real life to mothering in so many different ways. And I think our books kind of reflect that.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think one of the themes that I became aware that I was writing is the sense of unwinding our snarls. You go along in life, things are okay, and then you come to this big knot. and you gotta undo it. And sometimes it's too much at the time and you sort of walk around it, but sooner or later you have to come back to it. So the different characters in my books, there are those who embrace this challenge, and Miranda is one of those. It's like, I want to meet this head on, I want to get this right. There are other people who delay it as long as possible, and everything in between. But yeah, that does make it rich and realistic. It's so interesting. I think fiction is this powerful lens through which we can look at these deep issues of life. And I agree with you, Rebecca. These are things I couldn't have written 20 years ago. I needed much more life experience, in order to bring some of these deeper themes. And it's a great challenge that's very satisfying. And I love how much I learn every time I write a book, So I just wanted to mention again that we have a link that you can click on that and choose to subscribe to our newsletters and also enter our contest so that you end up with a wonderful free print book. So another
random though, not everybody, right?
Pardon me?
Oh, I didn't know if everybody was getting a free print book.
No, you enter the contest.
Got it.
You use random number generators so that there's no favoritism involved.
I have to go enter.
Okay, but you have to enter the contest in order to be, chosen.
Got it.
Yes, yes. So another thing that kind of fascinates me is all the research that I know we all have done for our books. And, I know for me, it's this sort of, sometimes it's hard to pull myself back out of the rabbit hole. I get so fascinated by what I'm researching. So Rebecca, do you want to say anything more about the research?
Yeah, sure. Just never go to a cocktail party with me. I'll talk your ear off about it. This is my favorite topic. Yeah, I do a lot of research. I do unusual research, actually. I do a lot of court watching. And I am always fascinated by that because I'm one of those people that should never be on a jury, as much as I would love to be. But I am swayed by language. So the defense attorney gives an opening statement, I'm positive he's right. And the prosecutor gives an opening statement, I'm positive he's right or she's right. And it really, having that experience, it informs the choices I make when I'm writing, because I realize how easy it is to be lost in the argument of someone who is just very glib. A lawyer is a terrible thing to live with, believe me. But they have the most uncanny ability with language. And so when I write my characters, especially those who are defending someone, I have to be really careful, because there are lawyers who read my stuff and they want it to be realistic. But real court is boring. It really is. I want it to be emotional without overstepping those bounds. So I spend a lot of time in court watching trials. I've also done some really exciting things. I am a graduate of the Drug Enforcement Agency Citizens College and the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Citizen College. And I got to, go through bomb fragments and figure out how they were made. And so I usually, when I'm writing a book, I try to find some place that I can get hands-on experience. Not to say that I use everything I learn, but I think being involved with people who are in the justice system makes the characters more realistic, makes the events more realistic. So I do that. And my favorite thing was I spent 2 days on the USS Nimitz and I landed by tailhook. Just like Tom.
Wow.
I know, it was so cool. So
Awesome.
I'm always on the lookout for people. I want to know what it feels like to be a victim. I went to the women's jail for hostile witness. And I spent the day in the women's jail that's in this book because I want to know, what does it feel like to be incarcerated? And I'm very lucky to be able to find the avenues to do these things. And again, no matter what I do in terms of research, behind the interesting stuff is always a person, a team, partners, whatever it may be. It always comes back to being personal. It's like, how much courage do you have? How can you turn a blind eye? Everything is emotional and personal. You just have to look past sort of the excitement of law enforcement and really dig a little deeper. And I'm lucky to have those avenues to do that.
Some of the research I had done earlier and then wrote about it. So for example, I was on a voyage to save whales and we went 6,000 miles in the North Pacific.
Whoa.
And that's an incomparable experience. And it's also irresistible to write about it at some point. So that came into one of my stories and I was really grateful to be able to, bring in details and conversations that I'd had, for example, with Roger Payne. He's the person who discovered that whales sing repeating songs. And so, understanding his process, his thought process, and goodness, he sat out there in a boat for weeks and months with a microphone over the side. And that's how his research started. So to respect the scientists, I have an astronomer character. I've spent quite a bit of time with friends at NASA and writing about NASA. So to me, I wouldn't dream of writing about careers like that without having done the research. I want my readers to have fun learning something, and I just can't imagine making that stuff up. And it's, besides, the truth is much more interesting.
It is.
I'm
always fascinated that people think we just sit and type.
Yeah, and make it up.
Yeah. And it's like,
not so much.
We get to do these fun things.
Yes. Oh yeah. That's part of the adventure.
Tammy, did you harvest lavender?
That's what I was going to ask.
No, I didn't. I didn't, but I have some lavender.
Oh, okay.
Not like fields of lavender. So I did a lot of research about lavender, and a setting always plays a big role in my books. And so I spent a lot of time. I try to make it very authentic as far as, where things are located and when the sun sets, and, just all the little things that go into that. I researched a lot of the little small towns around Medford, Oregon. And that's where this book is, set fictionally. And so I spent a lot of time on that. And then the characters, the sisters that follow in each book, the first book is called Pathway to Lavender Valley. And there's a character in that book called, her name is Harriet, but she goes by Harry. And she is a retiree. She just retired as a deputy chief of police in Salem, Oregon. And, you talk how you write kind of what you know. And so my dad has always been in law enforcement. So I've always been surrounded, much like Rebecca's life, I think, about the justice system. So you hear stories and you're involved, and I've gone to court since I was a kid to watch trials, and I've always liked that sort of thing. But Harry's retiring, and Jewel has asked her to be in charge of her estate. And so she goes back to Lavender Valley to do that. And Jewel wants her to find the 4 other sisters and bring them back to the farm. And in the process, Harry comes to town and she meets people and she gets invited. They find out she's a police officer just retiring, and they invite her to a 3-shoot gun contest. And so they're pretty excited because they think she's a ringer for their team and all. So she has to practice using a couple guns that she's not familiar with that are in the contest. So I did a lot of research about how those contests work and how they're set up. And yeah, I can't imagine just making everything up, because boy, readers will call you out if you get one
Yes,
little
they will.
detail wrong. And you
true.
can even, I think sometimes people have in their mind it's just one way that something is done, and there are other ways some things happen. And but they're pretty opinionated about what they think is right or wrong in a book. So I did have fun researching that.
And do you like hearing from readers about that? I'm just curious if you guys, I love hearing from readers when they're polite. When I've had a few mean ones, but mostly they're wonderful, and they just say, hey, look at this. Is this right? And I love hearing from them. How about you guys?
No, I don't mind if they're, like you say, if they're polite and not acting like, you're a total boob for whatever you've written. But yeah, I have a lot of interaction, a lot of little notes from readers, or they'll write and say, oh, I lived in this area for so many years and this is what I liked about it. And I wondered, kind of like what you guys were saying about, did you use blah, blah, blah as the restaurant? And,
Yeah, I was being interviewed on a local radio show in the Central Coast one day, and I have a storyline that includes an offshore oil rig, which required a lot of research. And I had done most of it, but there was one really important missing piece of information. And it had to do with which style of architecture was used in the creation of my fictional oil rig. And I found someone to talk to, but I could never get a hold of him because he was always out on an oil rig. Well, I got on a flight and I had the middle seat. I tried everything in the universe not to have the middle seat, but I was stuck with the middle seat. And then this very, very tall gentleman sat and, forced himself to squeeze into the aisle seat. And so we're sitting there kind of like, hello. And I couldn't even open my book. It was too crowded to do anything. So I said, well, what do you do? Well, I design offshore oil rigs.
No. Oh my.
I promise it's true. And so, I managed to get out, my little notebook. And for the whole flight, he drew pictures for me. He explained all this stuff. I gave him credit, of course, in the acknowledgements.
Of course.
But so this leads to my theory, which is you basically ask and you shall receive. If you ask the universe, okay, I either need this information or I have to take this part of the story out of the book because I can't write about it inauthentically. And several times I've gotten answers, right when I needed it. So it's like a little pat on the back. It's like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're on track. That's I think a really important part of the authoring journey.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mara. I'm sorry. I have tried. The universe does not do that when I sent out.
You need to let Mara know, because I think
I'll make the phone call for you.
Yeah.
That would be it. Oh my God, I hate
That is
it.
an awesome story.
That is amazing. I still want that to happen just once in my life. And I'm so sorry nobody ever calls me and now my phone's ringing. I'm so sorry if you can hear.
Well, it's because you already do such great research. Maybe you don't need to have somebody.
Oh, that is a sweet thought. You know what? I'm a bungler, actually. Where I fall into things, people say, oh, that was such a great success. And I'm like, yeah, I just made a wrong turn and there I was. And that's been my entire career, not my first career that I planned for, but the universe still did not bless me the way I wanted it to. I am not Pepsi Cola, but that's okay. But I really did fall. I started writing because somebody dared me to do it. I didn't start writing because I was like, can't wait to write. And it was fascinating. But even though it's not about research, there is a way that the universe blesses me in that I've had some really weird experiences, and each book I write is based on reality. And on my website, I made videos about the real inspiration behind each book. One was a family divorce. One was a German relative of my mother's who came to our house and was just scary as all get out. But, maybe Germans are that way sometimes. They come, they're really nice once you get to know them. But as a little kid, this stayed with me forever, that this gentleman who spoke in a strange language to my mother, as the night fell, it always stayed with me. So I think in a way, the universe gives me something, doesn't give me the guy who works on the oil rigs. It gives me other inspiration, but I love those videos because it made me really think about why was this story so compelling? And most of it is because, like Hostile Witness, it was compelling. It was the first case in California where a juvenile was tried as an adult, and my husband had that case. And it was
That's amazing.
First time I had ever seen him have some kind of reaction to what was in front of him. He had to send this child to men's prison for life. And, he said, the only thing he said about it was, it's a death sentence. And I realized that's his way of telling me, this really bothers me. But he did his job. So that's where that inspiration came from. And all my books are like that. I fall into something, and if the thought sticks with me, then it's like, I gotta write this book. Whereas I love that you plan and you say, universe, bless me. And it does. That's incredible. I'm going to send you my wish list. Okay? And you just,
Very good.
Rebecca, I'm putting it out there.
I think curiosity is one of the keys to being a writer.
Yeah.
And so, instead of just looking at something and going, what we do is say, now, what is that? And why did that happen that way? So like the book cover for When the Heart Listens, those yellow flowers at the bottom of the image, well, it was spring and I was driving north on Highway 1 right along the coast, and the wild mustard had just exploded. And I realized if I could get up high enough, I'd be able to see Morro Bay, which was sparkling blue that day, and these yellow flowers. So I drive the car like up on a berm, and then I stand on the running board, and then I hold the camera, like way up over my head to get that shot, which I then sent to the incredibly gifted painter who does the art for these book covers. And there it is, that sparkling blue water and those blue flowers. So then I started, yellow flowers. I did some more research and I realized yellow is the first color of spring. It's the harbinger of spring. So it's the forsythia, it's the wild mustard. All the first colors that pop are yellow. Well, my painter character does, color study. So I talked to two good friends who are artists about this, and that became part of the story about Miranda exploring this, what was then a new town for her, and then doing this, so each book cover is in fact one of her paintings. And so that's really fun. It's this sort of manifestation process of an idea, and then it expands into this noticing the world around us. Yeah. And then it manifests as this story, which, I have a friend who used to say, "Good night, everyone," because he knew all these characters are running around in my head. And, you know, there's the inner life, right, of authors. We have this life that can seem crazy to people who don't understand this process. It's like, how does that work? And then authors also have to have, I think, an outer life where we talk to fellow authors and reassure ourselves we're not crazy. And we get a chance to share with readers what we're up to and why this matters. And, you know, you were talking about language. I think law is one of the last repositories of the precision of language. And it's a wonderful thing, which we dare not lose. You know, that getting just the right word into our text, it's such an endeavor, sometimes so difficult. And that's one of the things that I want to, you know, I want to pay that forward. I want to make sure that our next generations don't lose these shades of meaning of different words.
I hope not. I don't know, Tammy, maybe you and Tammy, sometimes there's just one word change that to me is a perfect change. And I'm not sure people notice it, and I'm not sure they care. But do you ever, I mean, I don't agonize, but I do realize, no, they can be better, you know, and just one word or the way something is phrased. Is that something that you guys also do?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, yes. And I mean, the descriptions, you know, Tammy, I can see and smell the lavender, you know, hear the susurrus through the trees. I mean, all your descriptions.
I like Harry's house. I love Harry's house. I just thought, I'm so glad she's not renting to me. I couldn't answer all her questions. Oh my gosh. But I agree. I love that you're all of ours. I think we spend a lot of time on setting a scene. And I often wonder how important is that to a reader, but I think it is. I know it's important to me as a reader.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Tammy.
Oh, no, I was just saying, I think it's really important because you want your reader immersed in that world. You want them to feel that they are a part of that world and that your characters are real. I was just talking to my mom about that today, how I think I tend to be a character-driven reader. I connect with a character, and then once I'm connected to that character, I'll follow that author wherever they want to go. But if I don't connect with the character or care about the character, I'm not as interested in the book. So I feel that way about setting too. I mean, character I think is number one, but I think setting is so important to put the reader where you want them. You want them to feel everything and smell everything and get
I
that
totally
real
agree. All
sense.
5 senses. I think that's one of the keys of women's fiction.
Well, I'm not
A
sure
story to share with you. I was speaking at a conference one time, and Andrew Clavin was another author there, and he writes thrillers. And I asked him if he would like to debate women's fiction versus men's fiction. And he said, well, there's no such thing as men's fiction. And I said, well, yes, there is, if there's women's fiction. So he's like, well, okay. Well, we had this terrific debate, and it's not like 2 buckets, but it's like a continuum. And I'd say that, you know, men's fiction, that is fiction that's aimed particularly at men, it has more velocity, that's more important. And women's fiction is aimed more at at all these details that we're talking about. So let's say that it's a dinner scene. Well, if it's in men's fiction, the guy comes in, looks around the room, chooses a seat where his back is not to the door, and orders a steak. And that's all you need to know. But if it's a dinner scene in a book that's really more aimed at female readers, you understand which flowers are on the tables, what's the color of the tablecloths, what's the aroma coming forth from the kitchen, what's the view out the window, so that you are there, you are in that restaurant. And, you know, I think when it comes to mystery writing, you almost have to do both. You have to have the velocity,
Yeah.
But you also have to have the detail, because any detail could be a clue, for one thing.
Exactly. And
Right.
I do walk a fine line, because I came from women's fiction, and I got fired because the editor said, you have to stop killing people before they get in bed and make love. And I'm like, oh, okay, can't do that. Can't do it. I mean, literally, he said that. It was very funny. But it was a blessing, because honestly, I liked what you're calling velocity. I like that energy, that there is always some physical aspect around every corner. So I like the physicality of the thriller genre,
And the danger.
and the danger and the choices, and and the red herrings, and I love all that. But I really love setting a scene, and I do have to cut myself back on that somewhat. So I think, over the years, I've managed to find a good balance, because I have male readers and I have female readers. But early on, when I switched into this genre, I would get things that said, you write like a man. So you're absolutely right that there is, if you want to call it men's fiction, whatever you want to call it, there is a difference, and it is a pared down version of what women like Jack Reacher, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes.
One after another. And as a reader, I want both. I want to know what Josie's wearing. I
Yeah.
want to know what she's wearing to court, and I want to know what she's wearing down to the beach.
It's
And-
important. I mean, I think that a lot of, there's code in those details.
Mhm.
So when you say that there's a woman wearing a suit and a chiffon and carrying, an expensive bag, well, my husband will say, why do I have to know that?
Because
And I'll say, well, because my readers understand now that it's a woman of a certain age with a professional career living in the city. I no longer have to say all those things because I've put it in the wardrobe code.
well, it's characterization. The way
Yeah.
someone cuts their hair, the way,
Yes.
the way they move, the way they talk, the way they dress, the place they choose to live. I had made a huge mistake when I first started writing Hostile Witness in putting Josie in a condo that had security. Well, what did that do? It completely cut off community. The minute I switched her over to a house near the beach, because she's a beach lover anyway, that became characterization. In the same way, the lavender farm, how people react to that becomes characterization. In the same way, you can't take your artist character away from the outdoors. I mean,
No, I can't.
doesn't work.
She belongs there. Yeah.
And readers understand that, I think, intuitively, that the minute they read those descriptions, they are forming a voice that they hear in their head. They're forming a way, your character's body moves and how they interact with other people. I can't see a way to take characterization away from the descriptive, evocative things that we write about in terms of setting. I really can't.
Well, this has been so much fun talking with you. I know we could go at least another
Gosh.
I know.
But I suppose, Tammy, we should ask you to sort of wrap things up for us.
I'd love to. And be sure you two be sure and go back and look at some of those comments. I've been looking on my phone while we've been talking, and there's some very nice comments. So be sure and
Great.
go take a look at those. So thank you everybody for tuning in and joining us live, or if you're watching on the replay. We appreciate your support and you coming and spending some time with us. And be sure and check those links that you'll find in the comments where you can get some deals from us that are the first in our series, and then go and explore our entire collection. Most all of our books are on our website or on Amazon or other retailers. So be sure and check that out. And don't forget to enter our giveaway and subscribe to our newsletters, because we'd love to have you be part of our exclusive little reader club that we all have. And we will be cross-promoting and sharing this video on our websites and YouTube and Facebook pages. So you'll see it up everywhere. And I just want to remind everybody that Mara and I will be hitting the road again. We'll be joining Kay Bratt, who is an author friend of mine, and she lives in Georgia. So we've got quite a trek to make between California and Georgia.
We do.
We'll see her in July 26th, and we'll be right back here on my page with another fun chat. And we've got something special planned for that one. So I hope you'll join us again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And thank you,
guys.
Rebecca.
You made the stop. Thank you.
Bye-bye.